Rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ToastyTentacle. My name is Toasty. You must be those beautiful tentacles. Today on the program, we've got Phil. I'm sorry, we've got the Phil. And
The Phil.
the Phil, not just any Phil, the Phil. Welcome, Phil. Welcome to the ToastyTentacle program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Now, before we get started, Phil, I think it bears mentioning those are some mighty fancy headphones. What kind of headphones are they, Phil? Oh, of
Uh,
course.
Captain America. I've always been Team Cap.
Really? You've always been Team Cap?
Yeah.
Oh. Are you Steve
Yeah.
Rogers? Are you
Iron
like
Man kind of.
US
Oh yeah,
agent?
definitely. Steve Rogers.
Okay.
I
All
I
right.
hadn't collected comic books in years, so when they said that Steve Rogers officially got killed in the comics, I'm like, what?
What happened?
How'd that happen? He survived the '70s, but they killed him off in the 2000s.
They froze him. They froze him for a very long time, and then they thawed him out, and then he died.
What
That
a
was very
crappy
sad.
thing to do.
That
We
was very
froze
sad.
you. We thawed you out. Now we killed you.
I'm sorry, Captain Popsicle. This world is just too strong for you. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
honestly, Captain America always struck me as a little too much of a goody two shoes. Like, I was more of a team Spidey. Like, yeah.
Oh, I mean, Spidey is definitely my favorite of all the characters. Dichotomy is just
Oh
Iron Man
yeah.
was a little bit more edgy, and Cap was a little bit more by the book, and
And then,
so yeah.
now did you collect Spider-Man like you
Oh
collected
yeah,
comics and
I collected Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man,
Peter Parker
uh
the Spectacular Spider-Man?
probably.
Probably.
Oh no, well, during the '90s, it was my thing to just collect them, and like I said, all the Spider-Man titles. I actually did not collect the Captain America titles. I'm not quite sure why.
Hmm.
I guess because I was more of going back all the way. I was more of an X-Men fan. The angsty, not fitting with society kind of thing that the X-Men had going for them was what I was going through. So it's like I identified with them.
Oh.
Cap was the big hero, even though I liked him in his goody two shoes values. I couldn't really identify with him.
Yeah.
Here's these guys, trying to save a world that hates them. Here's the guys trying to save the world, but everybody loves them. I'm going to go over here and collect all of them.
Yeah. No, you're right. Captain America became very much but I think that's the character. The character of Captain America is a little bigger than life, a little too good for anybody. It's too moral. Steve Rogers spends half of his time wrestling. I mean, Spider-Man did the same thing with the whole with great power comes great responsibility. So there's always that moral dilemma. But yeah, Captain America was just, I don't know. I did collect the comic book. I had a subscription. And it was interesting that you mentioned that because that my subscription was right at the time Steve Rogers became disenchanted with the whole Captain America program. So he like walked away in the comic books. And of course they need a Captain America. So then the first one to try it was US Agent, I think. And US Agent was
Mm-hmm.
very murderous. like
Yeah.
like where Captain America was like a justice and a good fist bumping. And then US Agent was like, and a broken neck. Captain America started murking people out there.
Well, I just kind of make the distinction like this. Captain America thought being good made you a good American. U.S. Agent thought being an American made you good.
You make a very important distinction. I tell you, the US Agent storyline was really like I haven't cried during many comic books, but every now and then they hit a note, some really good storytelling. Um, and I enjoyed the US Agent portion of Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
It was disturbing. It was very disturbing. It was some of the most disturbing comics I gotten up to that point. Because a lot, Spider-Man. I don't know that any, people in Spider-Man died. I mean, Gwen Stacy died, so that was a huge thing. But um, for the most part, it was kind of like a sitcom. Like at the beginning of the comic book, all your favorite characters were there, and we had a story, we had some drama, but at the end of the comic book, all your favorite characters are there.
Right.
But you're right. It's interesting. X-Men was very had its own kind of fandom. Like, yes, it was Marvel, but you had kind of the Spider-Man, which was kind of like, plucky. But then X-Men got really involved really quick, like some pretty wild stuff.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
mean they got a little dark, of course,
Yeah.
but again, they were the fringe characters, the guys on the outside that no one really wanted, but everybody needed.
Yeah. No, it's right. It's funny. My friends would make fun of me because they would collect real comic books. They would collect like Japanese manga, or they would collect.
Oh, that's not comics.
That's not comic books. That's not comic
Hmm.
books. That's just male fantasies realized in 300 pages. I
Yeah,
remember Ah My Goddess was one of the first things I was exposed to. And that's just genius. Just this young boy surrounded by four beautiful goddesses, and
hmm.
they all come at him at every different angle. So,
Well, I got to actually see those well, not comics, because I don't do black and white. Black and white comics for me are just wrong.
they're just no black and white comics for you.
No.
You pay the people to color them, or just I'll save my money.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sunday funnies with the occasional, with the little Doonesbury that was the 5 panels long in black and white. That was fine.
Right.
Everything
Okay.
else, color. I grew up with color. I had color comic books. I had color.
Color televisions were made in the 1960s. Come on now.
So yeah, it was that, and so comic books were established here in America. So that kind
Right.
of set the tone, and that's what not that manga or anything else is wrong. It just
No.
that doesn't strike a chord with me.
Yeah, no,
But as I
I
was
think
about to
it's yeah.
as I was about to say, I was about to say, Rick Kim. If you did you even know Rick? Or okay, he was another one of Jenny's friends.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the one that actually showed me these manga anime cartoons, because at the time we were still calling them Japanimation.
Oh, right.
So I knew Speed Racer, I knew Giant Robot,
Okay.
but the wide breadth of the various kinds of anime, I had no idea until I met him, and then he introduced me to Oh My Goddess and Rama One Half and Cutie
Right.
Honey and Midnight Eye, Goku Midnight Eye. So all of those I was exposed to through him.
Mhm.
But my comics, still Yankee.
Nice. I love it. Now, did you collect DC at all, or I mean, you're clearly a Marvel character right now.
Yep, I am definitely a Marvel fan. Even though I do like Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, I never really collected their comics. What I know from them, I know from second hand from people who are deep DC fans and the movies, but DC never really struck a chord with me.
Huh.
Marvel struck a whole bunch of them.
It air guitared on my soul. Well, it's interesting because I think my comic book preferences were determined by my local High's store, because I could walk down to the High's dairy store and they had just one little metal rack of comic books. And I guess the Marvel comics sold really well. And then every now and then they would have like a random DC title, or they'd have like Vertigo. For some reason, we got a lot of Vertigo titles. And Vertigo was like the more adult side of DC, where Superman and Batman got into some misadventures and they might have to punch a few bad guys out. But Vertigo, was they started off with assassination and then it just got weird from there. So
Right.
there were a couple of titles that I collected in there, but I tell you the thing that broke my heart about comic books was when they started doing alternate covers, where it's the same comic book but different covers, and it was like it was cute at first because you're like, hey, it's episode 50 and it's a special episode. So we have the foil cover, or we have cover A or cover B, and then
Mm-hmm.
it got really bad where they were doing like variants of every cover. And I understand why they're doing it. It's a way for them to make more money on the product, but I just felt like I wasn't getting a new product. I was literally getting the same book with a different cover, and you're like,
Oh yeah, I mean, Superman did it with the Death of Superman, but I did collect those, so I do have all the Deaths of Supermans,
nice
men, yeah.
men, the
all
deaths of
the
the
all the
Superman. Yeah, the,
all
the
all all the various comic covers,
every
and then there was there was the X-Men Zero and X-Men #1, and then they had that all those different covers, and you just kind of strung them together for one collage.
yeah, that was cool. That I have to say that was pretty cool. Yeah. So I mean, sometimes I like them, but some of them I was just like, eh. But I think it speaks to me as a collector because I want to have all the things, and they
Mm-hmm.
kept producing covers, and I'm like, well, I don't. It doesn't end, and if it doesn't end, I can't collect them all. Like, don't you understand Pokemon? Like, work with me. I gotta have them all.
You have to be
So
that
yeah.
completist.
Yes, it is very much completist. But I actually worked for Diamond for a very short time, and
Oh
Diamond
wow.
Comics. Oh yeah, they let me tell you, ooh, there's some, yeah. What can I say without getting in trouble? Uh, the thing you learn is that there's more marketing and less like creative spirit. Like, don't get me wrong, the creativity is still there, but once you've been in the business side of it, you start going, oh, okay, there's 10 covers of that, because then you can sell the same comic book to one fan 10 times, is what
Oh
that
yeah.
really comes down to. And when Spider-Man relaunched, when Todd McFarlane relaunched Spider-Man #1, because you had the amazing Peter Parker and Webb, and then Todd McFarlane was so popular when he came on the 300th issue of Amazing Spider-Man with Venom,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so funny because he would
I
always
have
have
that one.
he'd always have webbing everywhere, and it was just ridiculous. Like, he overdid webbing. That was his style of drawing Spider-Man. It was very popular, and then he shot his own Spider-Man comic that was just called Spider-Man. And I
Mm-hmm.
literally bought 25 copies of Spider-Man #1. I had the foil copy, I had the green copy, I had the black and white copy, I had the gold copy, which was a second printing. Oh, it's nuts, just nuts. And I
I
did. I
think I
bought,
have most of those.
yeah, and it's,
I don't
I,
know if I have all 25,
I just,
but
well, but see,
I
that's
have
the
a
thing.
huge chunk of them.
I bought multiples of the same one because I'm like, oh, now I'm going to see it as an investment. I'm going to buy 10 copies because this is Spider-Man #1. But
Not knowing how investments really work, if there's a
yeah.
million of them, not very valuable.
Oh, let me see the death of. Wait, well, somebody actually told me that at a stamp show. I was working a stamp show with a friend of mine, and I said, "Oh yeah, Death of Superman's big, really big." And he goes, "All right, listen. Your monthly circulation of Superman comic books, let's say it's 50,000." He said, "Do you know how many issues they made of the Death of Superman?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Try 300,000." I'm like, "Oh." And that's when you start looking at stuff like CGC, the grading company for comic books. They,
Oh, okay.
a comic book is, its value is determined by its rarity and by its historical significance. So, like
Right.
the first appearance of Superman, a mint condition is like $250,000 or $500,000. I mean, those are rare and hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of my favorite stories is Alf. You remember Alf, the TV series?
I, I have Alf comics.
Hey, perfect. Do you have
I have
an,
Alf. I have Count Duckula. Uh,
oh no.
Probably have a few Danger Mouse in there somewhere.
Do you have an Alf annual #1? The very first year it came out, that was the big thing Marvel did, is they did annuals. It was a way to sell a 13th comic book in the year. Normally you do every month. An Alf annual #1.
Probably.
If you have that comic book, here's the story behind it. Apparently a tractor trailer filled with Alf #1's annuals capsized,
Mm-hmm.
and destroyed something like 50% of all the comic books that were printed. So overnight, this seemingly goofy kids comic book like tripled in value because half of them got destroyed. And it was always about first printing and second printing. So, you couldn't go back and just say, oh, we're going to second print the second half of it. They always had to do the second printing because of the
Right.
collector aspect of that. But yeah, Alpha Annual #1. I thought that was a
Oh yeah.
fantastic story. Fantastic.
Another rare thing is the Spider-Man TV show from the 70s.
Oh, the electric company when it was part of
No,
that?
no. There was actually a Spider-Man television show back in the 70s
Now, was that the
when
Amazing
I was a
Spider
kid,
Friends?
and his web shooters were. Nope, it was a live action. His web shooter external. He had that silver belt and the silver web shooters, and really weird action when he was climbing up the side of a building. They kind of kept reshooting the same one, and that's the rarity.
I have seen clips of the live action, because I basically had the Spider-Man toy that did that. That was.
I used to watch the TV show.
Probably in syndication, Phil. You're not that much older than I am. I mean,
I'm 52.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
Phil. All right. How's it feel to pass the 50 mark? I'm 46 myself, so I have no idea what you're experiencing. But what's it like to hit the big 5? Ouch. What's it like?
It's
Is that good, huh?
weird. It's like I tell people that I'm like, did I just say that? How the hell did that happen?
You turn around and the time is running.
I'm a half a century. Yeah. The 3 best things that came out of 1969 were Woodstock, the moon landing, and me.
Hey, nice one, Phil. Nice one.
Thank you.
The moon landing and Woodstock, huh? That's what I took
Yep.
away from that sentence. The moon landing and Woodstock. Oh, very nice.
Both the summer of 69.
Hey, there we go. The summer of 69. That's pretty good.
Yep.
That's
And then
pretty
yours
good.
truly.
Yeah, well, of course, the Phil had to manifest. So,
Yes.
so Phil, I always like to bug people and see how they're being creative. So obviously you like some I would say nerdy or geeky things, comic books and Marvel. I think that falls in that category. But you have another expertise of nerdery. You like role-playing games. Is that the RPGs? That's not the rocket
Yes,
propelled
I
grenades.
am definitely a fan of the RPGs. I've never
Very nice.
experienced the rocket power grenades, although I'm very curious.
Now you have
There's some
experienced
dubious
RPGs.
legalities here in Maryland.
RPGs in an RPG. You've
Oh,
actually
yeah.
had rocket propelled grenades inside of a role playing game, but not an actual RPG out here in the
No,
IRL. No, okay, I
no.
understand. I understand. In fact, that we
One
were
day.
talking about that. Well, no, he's kidding, folks. This is satire. This is satire. In fact, we were reminiscing that
Satire.
I don't know. You're freezing up, and it sounds like you're summoning something. You're like asada escavata. All right, and I might be offline. Wait, oh, you're back.
Are we back?
I don't know. I hear your voice. Hey, there we go. I don't know, man. I'm hardwired. I do not know. Hey, that's okay.
Hey, I don't want to get you that excited.
Yeah, don't get me hardwired excited. Hey, listen, we're in a Zoom era, so freezes are just part of life, man. That's like a cough. That's like a sneeze.
I don't know. I mean, I was a big fan of Skype until somebody said, "Hey, we're not using Skype anymore." I'm like, I just started learning how to use this darn thing. Like, why are you taking it away from me?
Well, I feel that there is this eternal struggle between software and hardware. So the hardware manufacturers, they make these bulldozers of phones. And then the software applications go, oh, you got a lot of room there. It'd be a shame if somebody used 100% of it. And then they slap on these giant apps that make these bulldozers start crying like little bunny rabbits. And then the hardware manufacturer's like, we see what you're doing. We're going to double the process. And the software is like, so can we. So it's like Spider-Man crawling up a wall. It's really
Yeah,
what it is.
right.
Yeah, I don't. But
That's how I used
that's
to
what it is.
begin my online gaming career using Skype. I mean, I started in real life,
Okay, right.
playing RPGs. I started that back in 1987. Yes,
Okay.
1987. Yep,
Well,
yep. My friend Ray decided to take a chance and tell me about RPGs.
I mean, back in those days, it was very taboo. You couldn't just throw it out there. You can't let your nerd flag fly. You can't do that. Nowadays, you can.
Well, also in our community, mostly black, you know,
Right.
weird nerdy things like that were unheard of. So when he introduced me, it was like to the extreme.
Oh,
Is he
sure.
gonna is he gonna freak out? Is he gonna run away? Is he gonna think I'm completely insane? Role playing game, like what the hell's a role playing game? And he gave me the basics about what a role playing game was. It's like, okay, like a choose your own adventure book. Yeah, that's it. So I was like, okay, cool. I like those. And I liked making up little stories for my sister because I had a younger sister who, well, a younger sister. I have many others, but I have one younger. And I used to make up stories for her so she would go to
Oh,
sleep at night. So I was like, okay, choose your own adventures, making your own stories. I've done that. Granted, they were crappy, things that a 10-year-old could make up, once upon
no.
a time and all that sort of thing.
Now, Phil, we
But
don't appreciate that kind of language here. 10-year-old Phil was doing everything 10-year-old Phil could, and your younger
oh
sister appreciated it. I won't hear anything else. I won't hear anything else.
yeah.
So you were
Indeed.
making up stories. I'm sorry, I took you
So he
off
took,
topic. Choose your own
oh
adventure.
no,
You're
that's all
making
right.
up stories, and then your friend was like, "Hey, you wanna play a
So he
little
took
role
me
play?"
to Games Workshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Took me down to Games Workshop, and this is back when Games Workshop still sold other people's games. So that tells you how long ago that was.
That was a
Because
while.
now they'd rather cut off your arm before they sell somebody else's product. And there was a second floor to the game shop, and
Mhm.
that's where the game club was meeting.
Okay.
Small room, maybe about 20 guys in there, different tables. We sat down at this one table, and the guy was running Marvel superheroes.
Okay.
And I can't remember every detail, but he was using a pre-gen a game with the little paper cutouts. My first exposure to superheroes was Spider-Man TV show from the 70s.
Right.
And of course, by that time, I started with the comics. This is great. This isn't much fun. I'm not making any decision on my own. He was basically telling us, okay, you're going here and you're doing that and you're going to come up here. And like, now Ray had told me that I was going to be making some of my own decisions and what my character was going to do. But at that point, I hadn't made a single decision of what I was going to do.
Hmm.
I could choose what I wanted to say, but basically it was, I'm going to go over here and do this. Oh, no, you're going to come over here and do this. But I'm supposed to be able to choose. So that was a bad experience.
Sure.
Said, screw this. I never went back, But I was like, okay, this was cool. I like the process. I just don't like that guy. Can we
Okay.
do this at your place? So he says, yeah, sure. And that's when my gaming really began. And yeah, we
Okay.
started with Marvel. We stayed with Marvel for a while. And then he introduced me to Star Wars and the Palladium system of games. There's a whole bunch of those, Ninjas
Hmm.
and Super Spies, Robotech, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, one of
Ah,
my favorites.
nice.
There's actually a role-playing game for TMNT.
That is amazing.
And so we played all these variety of games
Right.
and really, sunk its claws into me. But I was always dead sure that I was never going to be able to run a game. This is too complicated. This is just too much. Here comes Cyberpunk back in 1988. ooh, what's this? Picked up the black box set, and it was off to the races. I tried to run it that same weekend. I sucked as much as I thought I would, but I loved the game. I loved the setting. I loved the system.
Right.
It was super easy to learn for, let me see, 88, 80, like 19-year-old me.
Okay.
And the only problem I had was coming up with something good, original, and well, that didn't suck, but that takes time.
Okay.
There's a whole lot
A learning
of suck between the time you start, right, the learning process. I mean, people would throw me curveballs and I'd be like, I don't know. What do I do? Then I remember something very, very, very important. I'm a smart ass. I'm used to thinking on my feet, and I just kind of implemented that and began my road to not sucking.
It's a steady climb, folks, but Phil was ready. Phil was ready to
Yes.
stop the suck. That is amazing and disturbing all at the same time. No, I like that you're talking about the game system, and you like, the environment, because role-playing games come in so many varieties. A lot of people think automatically of Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, or they think of, maybe even Cyberpunk. But I mean, they really come in so many different flavors that even if you have an experience with role-playing games and it's not your favorite, maybe consider a different system, maybe consider a different edition. Some people are adamant about what kind of edition of Dungeons and Dragons they want to play, because every time they
That they are.
every time they refresh the mechanics, people are like, no, we're gonna play this one. I
Yeah,
do.
some
I
guys have
don't
been
go
playing
past
like
fifth.
first and second edition. Well,
Yep.
you can't go past fifth. I think that's all there is.
Oh, is there? Okay, well, clearly I'm out of the loop. I don't go past third, man. I don't go past third. You want me to roll percentile? No, I'm rolling the D20 for everything. Just
Well, I'm a weirdo because I don't play it.
oh no. So no, never D&D. Is it just the fantasy
In,
aspect, or?
in the 30 plus years I've been playing RPGs in total,
Hmm.
I may have played D&D 24 times. I don't mean arcs. I mean individual sit-down sessions. It's about 24 times in 30 plus years.
Now
And the
that
fantasy
doesn't sound like a lot,
aspect
but to give comparison, how many sessions do you
is kind of
normally
it.
do in a year?
Oh, back then,
Yeah,
I
back
was
then.
gaming every weekend, Friday to Sunday. I was either
Okay.
on the telephone, because we used to actually game Marvel on the telephone when we had, you had to do three-way.
Right.
Somebody would call you and you would have to open up another line to somebody else so you can have two people on the line, and
Right.
each person would do that same thing. Each guy would call two other guys. Well, we would call one other guy.
Right.
And
And
so
they'll
we
add
would
one
be
of their
game.
friends and one of their friends. Nice. So you got a
Right,
party line. And of course, everybody's trying to talk at the same time. You're like, guys, stop talking.
right. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
we were doing that way before Deb's thing.
Right.
But yeah, so we would get people all together on the phone, party line, and we game on the party line.
Right.
Or before I joined the game club officially, well, after I joined the game club officially, I would do it there. So we'd either do it on the phone at the game club, and even when the game club was over for that day, hey, whose house are we going to?
Nice.
Grab some pizza and some Jolt, for anybody who remembers Jolt.
All the caffeine and twice the sugar.
Yes.
That was literally their slogan.
And we would game until most people fell asleep. So back then, early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, every weekend. 2 or 3 games every weekend. It was amazing.
So in a 30-year career where you're banging out
I
maybe
loved it.
150
So yes,
sessions a year, out of those 3,000 sessions, you maybe did like 20 D&D.
Yep.
So,
Oh, you can do math in your head.
oh, like, like
Man,
this.
I have to take off my shoes to count to 8.
Wait, it doesn't follow, Phil. It doesn't. Unless you had some accidents between the last time we talked, I think you should be able to count a little higher.
Mm.
Oh, folks, laugh with us. Laugh with us. Uh, so you had shown me an online RPG that you had done,
Hmm.
and what were some of the lessons you learned from running and hosting an online game? Moving from that technology from the party line up to the virtual world.
I have a lot to learn.
Okay.
There's a lot to do with lighting and sound and audible, at least, where,
Right.
as you might have noticed, there was a few technical difficulties because I was visiting, again, my friend Ray, and we
Mhm.
were trying to game at the same time in one room. So 2 computers, no one had headphones, a lot of static, a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
So that was something I learned. Yeah. 1 computer per room.
Yeah, that is important, and I really encourage people that are going to do any kind of online stuff, use a headphone. Use headphones because the speakerphone has a delay, and it's not much of a delay, but speakerphone has like a half a beat delay. It's like you're having an international call, and everything they say is like, okay, yeah, that's great, and like, and then we have another thing. Well, with
Yeah,
speakerphone,
it's just it's a
just a little bit, just a little bit of a freeze.
little disjointed, and
Yeah. But with a
so yeah,
dedicated
and
speaker for each
mostly what I
person,
learned was
it's a lot less.
technical.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got
Good.
my again
No,
Captain
you
America headphones,
got
so it
very
makes it
good.
do.
Very nice Captain America headphones there, Phil. Uh, all right. So you've done some Cyberpunk, you've done some Captain America. So what do you do when you're not gaming? Is there room for anything in your life when you're not gaming, or is it just gaming, gaming,
No,
gaming?
I work, a couple of jobs. So
Sure.
uh I have a bi-weekly game, but that's the only thing I have regular.
Okay.
And I have two more games that are kind of hit or miss,
Hmm.
as I can't always promise my time.
Right.
But when I was doing that, it was like once a month for those 2 games,
Okay.
which really I don't like, but I have no choice. And they're online. That's another thing. All my games are online. I prefer face to face. I'm a
Yeah.
very animated GM. I
Hmm.
stand up, I walk around the table, I'll gesture, I'll make voices, and virtual is good. Virtual works fine for bringing people together. Like I have a player from Czech Republic,
Right.
but I'm an online guy. I mean, an in-person guy.
Yeah.
That's where all my abilities are. That's where I shine. So I can do it online, but it's just I liken the experience to playing handball against drapes. It just doesn't have that return.
Well, you're right, because the one thing you have to do is you kind of have to stay on camera. And right now, most of us have static cameras. Now, in 5, 10 years, when we have moving cameras, it can, but then you got bigger problems because not everybody's thinking about their background. So yeah, there's a whole thing to learn about that. You had mentioned
Right.
GM
That's
for
why I'm in the
you're in the closet.
well, I'm actually in my room, but I have like stuff like it doesn't light up, but my Jack Skellington nightlight and
Oh,
my
nice.
my Lucky Charms, and
Did
so
you are you
I got all this stuff over here.
collecting Lucky Charms, or is that like an active box?
No, I that's a really big box.
Oh, okay. So it's just
Got it from
the
Costco.
Lucky Charms you enjoy rather
Oh yeah.
well, because like every now and then, though, I mean, some of the cereals they come out with, like I saw Batman ice cream the other day. I'm just like, that's not a flavor. Like Batman is not a flavor. And if it is, oh Lord help us, because that cannot be a tasty flavor. It probably tastes like
Oh no.
justice. It tastes like vengeance. But yeah, I know some people collect food items because they put them out there. In fact, I think it was Funko that recently did T-shirts in cereal boxes. So they'll sell you like a Twix T-shirt, but it's actually like a cereal box. But of course, it's not a real cereal box, but it looks just
Right.
like one. So that's
Oh yeah, I've
fun.
seen those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of
when
good times.
I was coming up again, gimmicky cereals were actually gimmicky cereals like Mr. T.
Ah,
Mr. T had a cereal.
yes, he
Uh,
did. Yes, he did.
I ate it. Pac-Man, Smurfs, you
Oh,
know, there was so much, marketing to kids out there. It's like, okay, let's make it a cereal, and then they'll,
I had Smurf glasses from Hardee's. Figure that statement out. I went to Hardee's, got there, got a meal, and then bought glasses that had Smurfs on them because why wouldn't you? I mean, obviously. I was happy. I had a
Mhm.
Gargamel. I think I
Right.
broke Gargamel though, but
I had the Flintstone glasses from McDonald's
I
when
had
the
one of
first.
those. Yeah, they look like a horn and all kinds of.
Yeah, they were actually really well made. It's
Yeah, they were.
mass produced, but really well made. And I think they eventually had like six of them. I had four of the six.
Right.
God help me what happened to them, but so
It's
yeah,
funny. I think I have one on my kitchen counter as we speak. It's downstairs. I can't get it, but it's a horn. It's the drinking horn, and
mhm.
then it says Flintstones, and it's like the frosted glass. They were very well
Yeah, this
made.
was the first Flintstones movie with Rick Moranis and John Goodman playing
Right.
Fred Flintstone, and Rick Moranis was Barney Rubble, and
Right.
so they marketed the heck out of it, and of course, why wouldn't you?
Oh my goodness, yes.
But that started me collecting mugs. Actually,
Oh,
I've got a
okay.
couple. Yeah, I got a couple of them over here. Me,
Mugs.
hold on.
Oh, we're definitely down for the mug collection. That's
Sorry.
that's half the fun. No, you take your time, Phil. You take your time.
Mm.
Oh, look at you. I
That's
sense a
just a couple of
skeleton theme. Hmm.
the ones that I have.
Very nice. Very nice. I
I've only got about I only have like six here, but I have actually boxes, like three boxes of them. So
because
maybe about 60, 65.
mugs. Are you a coffee drinker? Is that the mug connection?
No, I started with buying the Flintstone mugs from McDonald's, and then they had a series of Garfield glass mugs. Sorry. So I said, okay, cool. I like these things, and started collecting mugs. I drink everything else. I'll drink coffee occasionally, but I'm not what you would call a coffee drinker. I never say, hey, I'm going to go get me a cup of coffee. If I'm hanging out in a coffee shop, yeah, you know,
I mean,
somebody,
when
I'm
in
at somebody,
Rome.
right. If I'm at somebody's house and they say, hey, you want some coffee? Sure. But I'll never seek it out.
Do you remember the
I,
buzz bombs they had in Fells Point? I forget where they
oh yeah,
were.
daily grind.
Oh yeah, they had the chocolate covered coffee beans. Oh, they're so
Yep. Oh yeah.
good. Oh,
But yeah, mug collecting is simply for the mugs themselves. They don't have any value,
okay.
not a single one of them, because again, it's produced. But I aesthetically really find them pleasing. And I'll
Hey,
have theme ones like My Nightmare Before Christmas. I have a
right.
few Spider-Mans, a few Marvel in general, a few Doctor Who. Yes, I span the nerdy rainbow, the nerdy gambit. Star Wars,
Yes,
Star Trek, Doctor Who, Marvel, Nightmare Before Christmas, role-playing games.
sure.
Yeah,
You're all
it's
over
my
the
mom.
place.
It's my mom's fault. Yeah.
Oh, and how did mom lead you down this path?
Oh, she led me into being a sci-fi and fantasy fan. So it's not that
Mm.
I'm not a fan of fantasy; it's just I don't want to play it.
Fair enough.
So yeah, she introduced me to sci-fi, and it was off to the races.
Very good. When did what do you remember what she introduced you to, or some of the early stuff that she kind of connected you with?
Probably Star Trek. Star Trek.
Okay.
Sorry, Star Trek. Star Trek. Star Trek, Logan's Run, I think Westworld.
Oh, okay.
So just think of all the old sci-fi movies from the 60s and 70s.
Okay. Okay. That's
And
quite an education. That's a great time. That golden era of sci-fi where all the
it,
shiny spaceships and the
exactly.
blasters and
Mm. And all the thinly veiled social commentary. I
sometimes
mean, that's
not
what
so
the,
thinly veiled.
but I mean, that's why sci-fi was such a great thing, because you could tell the story of, inequality, like the episode of Star Trek with Frank Gorshin, where there's, the guys there are the guys black on the left side. So even though they're black and white characters, their whole race, but because they're colored on the wrong side, they come into conflict. And so that was their little homage, I guess you say, to, the race thing happening.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
okay, we want to address this. Well, Gene Roddenberry, because he was still alive at the time, wanted to address it. But if we actually made it obvious, no sense or whatever, give it to us.
Right.
So you drape some sci-fi over it, put it out there, and oh, there's some cute little sci-fi thing that they're doing. Let's not even pay attention to that.
It's just adorable. That's all it is. I remember that episode. I remember that they were one side and you're like, why can't they get along? And then it reminded me of the Butter Book by Dr. Seuss, where we eat our bread butter side up. Well, we only eat it butter side down, and we're going to go to war against each other because you can't flip over a piece of bread.
And,
Honestly, I'm butter side down because that's where your tongue is. But anyway,
and Starbelly Sneetches.
oh, who doesn't love
And
Starbelly
Starbelly
Snitches?
Sneetches,
Mhm.
and then there's the Sneetches without Starbellies, and then the ones with Starbellies, and that's the only difference between the two.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I thought that was pretty potent what they did on Babylon 5. Babylon 5 had the Centauri and the Narn, and
Mm-hmm.
they explored an aristocrat race that was very white and pasty and vampirish. And then you had the Narn that were green and very of color, if you will. And they
Mm-hmm.
had a very tenuous relationship where, of course, the Narn was the second class citizen and the Centauri very much, exploited their labor. And then, of course, the Narn rose up and, they had such great tension because here were these two representatives that had this really ugly history between them. And now the Narn were at a place where they could return some of the ugly. And it was fascinating watching them trying to keep the diplomacy, in spite of all that history. And
Mm-hmm.
it was
And
fun. I
again,
mean,
those issues draped with sci-fi are a little bit more palatable for, your general audiences.
yeah. And
And
I think it gets us out of our own heads because if you can give somebody a fresh perspective, you can illuminate something that maybe they didn't understand before. But you're right. You thinly veil it. So
yep,
what do you say is
exactly.
the what would you say is a modern version of this? Something you've seen recently that had thinly veiled social commentary and really kind of struck.
Now they don't have to do a soldier where the terrorists were being hunted by the world governments because once the blip happened, all the people that Thanos snapped away came back and unbalanced the system. So the power that be, oh, we're just going to crowd you all into these little camps and then forget about you and call it done. Well, they didn't want to be crowded into little camps and forgotten about. So they rose up and they started fighting. And they were called terrorists. Like, no, they just don't want to be put in little camps. So it wasn't anything really thinly veiled about that one, but that's the one that strikes me at the moment.
Yeah. I was thinking somebody did a great it was either a Twitter post or something, and they said, when you look at Star Wars, it's Luke Skywalker is a terrorist that was radicalized by an old man who believed in an ancient religion, and he eventually basically had a terrorist attack against the largest military installation in the empire. And you're like, oh, oh, oh wow, that language is quite interesting. Uh,
Yeah.
and then they dropped all pretense when they got to the new movies, because the first order, was red and white and black, and everybody was standing out in the cold, and they're just like, the first order will rule forever, and you're just like, oh, I've seen this movie before.
Oh
It's
yeah.
in black and white. Yes, I remember that one. I remember that Charlie Chaplin did a really great rendition of it, and it was not as awful as the original. Yeah.
Yes. But you could do that with you can do that kind of first order thing in the Star Wars role-playing game. And there's a few different There's a few different editions
Okay.
of the Star Wars role-playing game.
Okay.
There's the original West End Games version, and
Mhm.
now they've gone through a couple of renditions, and now they're at the it belongs to a company called Fantasy Flight Games.
Okay.
I don't want to plug them since I don't really play it, but just in case people are curious.
That's the level of RPG nerdery that you have, Phil. You know the different editions. You're just like, hey, if you want the nice stuff. So what's next on the horizon for the Phil? Obviously, you've got your regular games that you're taking care of, but is there something you got in the back of your mind? You got a seed growing in your creative spot? What's your next venture?
And I'm just trying to throw in some new material.
Okay.
Cyberpunk has gone through a new edition of Cyberpunk Red. I haven't read it yet. I can't say whether I like it or not because I haven't read it. But for the most part, I'm going to stick with the classic Cyberpunk 2020. I see no reason to change. I'm an old curmudgeon, so just because something new comes out doesn't mean I have to go and glom onto it like everybody else.
Okay, but Phil, you do realize that the Cyberpunk 2020 is now old. Like when
Well,
Cyberpunk 2020 was
chop
first,
off the 2020, just say Cyberpunk.
yeah, but when Cyberpunk 2020 was first introduced, 2020 was a year we thought we might never get to. And now we're 2 years past it, and the world is in a giant cyberpunk game because we have our world pandemic. Because it's so amazing, because I played some games and it just blew my mind, because usually those games have an initial plot point, like half the world died, or there's some terrible plague that wipes out all the Earth's forces, or alien invasion. And we've literally been in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Have you included any pandemic in any of your games?
Right. No, simply because
That's not fantasy.
the well, it's not. There was a plague in the cyberpunk universe. It happens pre-start of game.
Mhm.
The game has a timeline, and so the original game starts in 2013. Well, the original setting is 2013. It all came out in 1987, but that was the game frame 2013. And there was already the plague, so it already happened prior to the start of your. I need to revisit it. However, of course, you will throw a small little outbreak here and there just to give your characters something to investigate.
Of course, of course. That's fun. I enjoy that you take so much time to consider your players, and kind of to, as you said, going back to the beginning, to choose your own adventure, but to help them choose their own adventures. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's your job to write all the various pages, and as you said, write a lot of them on the fly, because you really don't know what your players are going to do.
Oh yeah, players will. As one person analogized it, it's kind of like herding cats.
Feral cats at that.
Yeah, good luck with that. They're never going to go the direction you want them to go in. Right. They're going to do something hanky. They're going to jump, something they should. You have to be flexible. You have to be ready to adapt to whatever they're going to do and be quick about it at the same time. And thankfully, I
am. Well, modesty seems to be something you've mastered, Phil. So,
oh yes,
we appreciate the modesty today. So, I always like to ask people two things. First of all, where can we find you? We can find you online at the Facebook. If we want to find
yes,
you
the
there.
Facebook. I don't have a social presence outside of Facebook.
Okay, fair enough.
So if somebody wants to friend me, sure thing. But as I have no time.
He's busy, folks. He's busy. He's very, very busy. And then, of course, my favorite question and my final question is,
I'm doing the whole life thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, Phil. I mean, sure. If you're gonna live, fine. I guess do your thing. Whatever floats your boat, Phil. My favorite final question is, of course, how is your book coming along? You are a very creative person. You obviously are very quick with the story. When do we get your first book?
I had not actually thought about it.
That's what ToastyTentacle does. He reminds everybody that they need to write a book. So obviously you've got the chops. You're basically writing a book every time you run one of these games. If you were going to write a book, which universe would it be in? Cyberpunk? Would it be in superheroes?
Most likely. Okay. I like Cyberpunk because something you can look at and say, okay, I can imagine that with the little added touch of neon or a little touch of chrome. I can see that. Fantasy, I can't do that. I can imagine it. Of course, I have an imagination, but I can't attach myself to it. Yeah. So when they're running around with their +5 swords and fighting dragons, I'm imagining a guy with a lead pipe and some big bodybuilder who is standing between you and getting out of this burning building.
I'm hooked already. I'd play that game. Roll for initiative. That'd be good.
Oh yeah,
that's plus, all I remember.
A lot of the fantasy with the whole D&D thing. I've actually watched some live play D&D. Like, okay, everybody's throwing around spells and this just play superheroes. At least you have a modern setting. That's all you're doing. Is like you can't see a D&D game about half a dozen people with powers, and that's fine. But play superheroes for me.
I gotcha. Yeah.
I like to preface that by saying anything I'm referring to myself first.
The ideas and opinions expressed on the ToastyTentacle Show do not reflect the sponsors of the ToastyTentacle Show. Currently, none. But should we get some sponsors, we do not want Phil to mess up that sponsorship. Nor would he. Well, that's fantastic. Well, I'm glad we got to inspire the whole book.
But I do encourage I want to inspire everyone to go out there and role play. I mean, if you have an idea that you want to play or that you want to create, I don't care what genre it is. Get out there and do it. It's rewarding as all get out. You see your vision brought to life, so to speak. You and your friends create something that didn't exist, 10 minutes before.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it. I can see you doing like a 10 tricks to be a successful game master. I could see that. I could really see that. I'd buy that book. I'm just saying, Phil. I'm just saying, if you write it, I'll buy a copy. That's as long as it's not one of those like $3,000 college textbooks where I have to get exclusive license. I can't do that. I'm just saying, if you do a mass market publication, sold. I will buy a copy. I'm down for that. So yeah, good times, good
Uh,
times.
yeah. If you're willing to buy like 3,000 of them, I'll start on that right now.
Now Phil, I was looking for a copy, not a ton of copies. That is the
Oh, okay. I
difference.
wanted to make sure that it hit the market well, and
No, no, and I will totally
it,
promote it. You know, you can count on Toasty Tentacle to push the book through. But do not expect me to buy 3,000 copies. That sounds like money laundering, and we don't
uh,
support that here. We
oh
don't.
yeah,
I'm sorry, Phil.
yeah.
I'm
We like
sorry.
our dirt. We like our money nice and dirty.
We like our money nice and dirty. We was it the best line from the movie Trespass, where I think Ice-T hands somebody $1 or $100 bill, and there's blood on it because he just like killed somebody and took their money away. And the guy's like, but there's blood on the money. He goes, you ever see money that didn't have blood on it? I'm like, oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Money
Indeed.
always has blood on it. Always has blood on it. Well, Phil, thank you so much for joining us on Toasty Tentacle. We sure do appreciate you coming by, and
You're
we'll
welcome.
sing you out with a couple soothing tunes, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you. Thank you. I am pleased beer.
Thank you very much, Phil.